thank you, Niven. This is the first time I've kind of tried to teach in a coherent way. Just to introduce myself. I'm Nathanael, and this is my wife, Ruth. We live in Meadville, Pennsylvania, about 3 hours northwest of here. Been there for about 2 years. Previously, we lived in Europe since we're married, since 96, Ireland and Greece. So, but yeah, knife sharpening has been something that I've loved to do, and I haven't really done it as a job until the last 2 years, but I remember it was probably around 8 or 9, and my uncle brought this special sharpener. It's a Spyderco fixed angled sharpener. I don't know if you know what that is. And we sharpened knives, and for the first time I could shave with it afterward. That was like so exciting. Welcome. Have a seat. Go on in. So ever since, it's always been, I don't know, it's just like this joy you get from something that cuts really well. And I've done a lot of hand woodworking, and be able to enjoy working with wood. You need sharp tools. And so it's been part of that journey as well. Come on in.
Like the late arrivals are here.
You're good. We've had a trickle here for a while, so. Maybe if you guys want to squish together a little bit, we're about maxed out, so that's good. So yeah, I'm curious about my audience, because I don't know what stage of skill or what do you want to do with your sharpening. So I'm just thinking, how many of you are looking for sharpening for, say, a business, like a cafe? Not to do sharpening as a business, but like in your cafe or something. How many? So there's, and then some of you maybe for home, in the kitchen, that sort of thing. That's good. That's good, because we all, come on in. We all, cook and eat food, so we need something for that as well. As far as how many feel fairly competent as a sharpener, like you can get a knife sharp enough to shave, let's say. Anybody? Oh, there we go. We got a few, so that's good. And maybe some intermediate people for able to get it cutting all right, but not always. And okay, that's good. Because there's a lot of different approaches you can take to sharpening, and you know, at work we have a electric. It's a belt sander basically that has a fixed angle, and you can sharpen knives very easily and quickly, especially if they're really dull or have nicks or chips or something. But what I was thinking of for this class is just something that's approachable for normal folk, and I think even just, I mean, you can do the other thing too. It's just maybe $1,000 or a few hundred. For even something that's applicable to a cafe setting where you're using your knives every day and you want to keep them sharp and cutting properly. So that's what we're going to try to do. There's a lot of different ideas as well around sharpening, and I'm sorry if I step on deeply trenched beliefs about how to sharpen knives. I don't mean to be stuck up or like cocky about how I do it. And if you get a knife sharp, it's perfect. It's just I kind of learned a certain thing, and so then that's what I teach. So hopefully, so I put on the back page, I put some that are not recommended, and I hope that's not too offensive, but we'll look at that then. So I figured it would probably be useful just at the beginning Maybe I'm out of handouts now, but you could turn to the first page in your handout. Maybe I just look at it, yeah, with you. I could write on the board too, but hey. So you can tell these drawings are like really high tech, but hopefully they demonstrate a certain thing. Actually, my daughter, 12-year-old daughter, drew them for me, so that's good, with instruction. So it's pretty basic. The first illustration of what is a sharp edge and what is a dull edge. And it's basically that the steel comes to exact point, and there's a variety, like there's a spectrum, there's a continuum of duller and dullest or something. But what we're aiming for is for the steel to come to an exact point. And for the bevel, doesn't always look exactly, the sharpened part here doesn't always look exactly flat. Maybe it's a little bit curved or something. But, you want it basically centered and basically flat and pointy. Otherwise it won't cut. So, in order to do that, normally a dull knife looks somewhat rounded on the end, or on the tip. This one here is pretty dull. Figured I could try to cut a tomato. It actually does cut, so it's not madly dull. But in order to get a sharp point for a dull knife, you have to remove material, and in the right place, obviously. If you take it off, maybe we'll switch to page 3 quickly. And it might be a little bit difficult to understand exactly what the illustration there is about. But you can see 3 different angles. The one to the left is basically taking all the steel all the way along the bevel. But if you take off at a more obtuse angle, there's not as much steel to take off, and you still get a sharp point. And then the third one is even more steep. So the point with that illustration is basically you can get a sharp point, and it's also quicker, let's say, to steepen your angle and get a sharp point. You don't have to take off as much metal. You can see that. The first one is taking the metal off the whole distance. But the problem is the last knife edge is so sharp, so obtuse, it's not going to cut very easily. It's not going to go through a tomato very easily. It's going to hold up. You're going to have to use more force to get it through things. So you have this kind of balance. It takes more time to get a sharper point, or a longer, flatter angle, let's say, but you're going to be able to use it more easily with your project, your food. And there's always a balance, because of course if you go too steep, the very edge becomes more weak, and you can have chips in your knife edge. It could hit something hard and it could start to chip. So generally, I like, maybe this is just a number for you, but 14 to 16 degrees is the general angle per side. So that's not together. You can add them together, say like 30 degrees total for 15. And it's a kind of a balance. I think for kitchen knives you can go even less, because it's not usually hard things you're cutting, it's more soft stuff. So that's a little bit there about the balance around angles and how easy it is to sharpen. There's a lot of kind of sharpeners that they use, they market, let's say, that you just pull through, And the reality with those tends to be, I'm not saying that you couldn't take a knife, pull it through, and get a little bit sharper. But the reality with those, it tends to take, like the third illustration there, take a little bit off the tip. It's not taking a volume of metal off. It's just taking a little bit off the tip and getting you back to that, but long term, you don't have a good edge. It's kind of just renovating it a little bit, and then you can go back to cutting. But for a durable, it's probably a durable edge in some senses, but for a long-term solution for sharpening your knives, it's better to have something that can take the whole bevel off. We call that whole piece the bevel, and you can see in a normal kitchen knife, just the very, very edge has a bevel. The rest of it's just a long taper. So that's what we call the bevel. I should have talked about that earlier. So how do we get metal off? We use, you can use a belt, you can use grit. I'm back on my second page, which doesn't say second page, but it is a belt, or you can use various kinds of sharpening or grit, let's say. There was this guy I used to watch who would get very sharp edges on a brick. You just use a little old building brick, and he would just do it very carefully. And it was amazing. And, you know, for how many years people use stones. But modern technology has given us even more useful things. This is a steel plate, and embedded in the surface is some kind of a electroplating process. They put diamonds, and they've graded the size of the diamonds specifically with the grading system. You know how sandpaper is, you know, 220 or 120 or all those things. The rough side of this one is 325. I believe that corresponds fairly well with sandpaper grit. So if you're familiar with 220, it's just the next level up. And then the other side has 1,000 grit, extra fine, actually 1,200 grit. I think there's a few companies that go finer than 1,200 with diamonds, but it's difficult. I'm not sure what the process is, but usually diamond doesn't go much finer. And if you want to go really fine, this is a ceramic rod, which is a stone. Ceramic goes really fine. I forget what this grit is, but it's like a few thousand. So we can talk about that. So the way to take off that steel off of the bevel is to use some kind of abrasive. And presumably, if your edge is quite round, we'll just make a demonstration here. Well, it's a little lopsided. But if it's quite round, you're going to have to take off, you know, all of this material till you get back to your point here, right? How's that for a good drawing? But if it's less round, you know, you might only have to take off so much. Point being, a coarser stone is going to take off material more quickly because it's got bigger sharp edges to grind it off. If you were trying to take all this, I mean, obviously this is out of proportion, but all of that, for example, with the really fine side, you would be at it a long time. And it would take you a long time. So that's why we have more than one grit. And some people will go through lots and lots of grits. Again, I think there's a balance to simplify, and two grits, and then I'll talk about the stropping. 3, I feel like does a very good edge, and I've used it a long time for woodworking type approach. I feel very happy with it, and yeah, there's a lot of ways to test sharpness as well, but we can talk about that. So we're doing good as far as time. trying to be conscious about how long it's going to take so I don't run out of time, but I don't want to leave too much space either. So when we're sharpening an edge, something that happens, this is a crude illustration again, but as you're taking off material toward the edge, something happens here called a burr. And you probably heard of that, I don't know. But basically the unsupported metal kind of bends up because it's weakened, and it starts to curl over. So a burr is an important thing, not that we actually want a burr left on our knife, because we don't, but to sharpen something, that burr tells us that we've gone far enough. So when, for example, we're taking metal off until we get to this point and then go past a little bit, the burr, let's see, is going to be curving up there. Let me use my marker. There's going to be a burr that develops there. Very fine. You might not be able to see it very well, but you can actually feel it. So that burr is our indicator that we've ground the steel off of this side all the way to the point. And then what we want to do is switch the knife over and then grind on the other side, and then the burr will come this way. Maybe that seems a little bit complicated. I don't know if that is terribly obvious by that explanation, but I can demonstrate to you. I brought some things to cut then later. Actually, I'm going to do it this way because it's more stable. Okay, I'm just going to turn it a little bit. Okay. So this is a decently sharp knife, so I guess I'm cheating a little bit. This one here is not very sharp. So the sharpener that I have here comes with this little angle gauge, and you can see if I put this angle here is 14 degrees, it gives me that. The way I use a stone like this does demand a little bit of practice and skill. Like, not like anybody could do it, right? But the more practice and the more you pay attention to it, the better you can, or the more quickly probably you can get an angle. Because if you're varying as you sharpen, it'll still get sharp, but it will take more time, and the bevel will be slightly rounded. I've just started doing it by memory because I don't know, you kind of just develop a muscle memory, and just by holding the knife on the I don't know, you just get a feel for it. You can also watch, this one doesn't have a large bevel, but you can watch at the very tip. No, actually you can't see it on this. Some knives, when you get the bevel flat, you can see that it's actually touching at the very front. You can also take a marker, which is what I did with Nevin's knife, which is helpful to try to match the previous bevel. I'm not marking it very well. Just darken that edge with a marker, and then when you take a pass, then you can see that part of it came off and part of it's still left there. I don't know if it's very obvious, but so that just indicates to you. So usually I there's a lot of different people, some go backwards, forwards, whatever. There's a lot to the feel of how the knife feels on the stone. So one thing that's important is that your stone is held securely. It's not like slipping around. You don't want to hold this with one hand and try to, because there's just too many variables. So having a holder, so this is like a rubber base with a little bit of weight. You can put it in a vise or something as well, so that helps. But being able to use two hands on the stone, get the angle, and if you need, you can use angle guide, and then it kind of gives you that feel, you start off on the flat, and then as it gets to the tip, you have to raise this hand just a slight bit, because otherwise that would never get in contact with the stone. Everybody see that? So it just goes in an arc like that. You can even, sometimes I go forward and back because it just like lets you keep your angle. This part here is all like stiff because you don't want to be like moving the wrist or even the arm. You can actually just like rock yourself forward and back so that everything is like kept like in the right. I'm not sure exactly what's moving, but I try to keep this part rigid, right? So we just go back and forth on the one side, and we're using a fair amount of pressure. It makes kind of a nail-biting sound. So now the point with the burr is that you can actually feel when you've gotten far enough. You feel that? I don't know if I can't pass it around to everybody maybe, but there's like just a little bit of roughness on the very edge. You know how to sharpen, so yeah. And that indicates that I've spent a fair amount. That middle part there doesn't actually have much, but right there, yeah. That has ground down to get to that edge. So that burr indicator is pretty key to sharpening, which I can actually feel. There's a burr there, but right here it's smooth. So that means I needed to keep working until there's a burr continuously along the whole edge. I'm not sure who sharpened this knife last, but it wasn't quite done right. Definitely not me. The very tip is still not very sharp, but yeah, now I can feel there's a burr all the way along. So now, I don't have to turn that around. I start at the other side of the stone, same angle, and just do it in reverse. And again, that's a little bit of a trick to just kind of feel how it works going in the opposite direction. A little faster, but that's a good idea for the sake of time. And now I feel there's a burr all the way along the other side. So we've gotten to that point. Now the goal, the old days, I remember reading the Boy Scout handbook. That was one of my favorite books back in the day. They said once you get to the burr, you take it in a piece of wood or something, and you just draw it through a couple of times, and you get the burr off, which you can do. But we want as sharp an edge as possible. And so if you can imagine that this edge is like this with that, little feathery piece of metal, what happens if you just rip that off? Your edge is just kind of, it's very fine. You don't almost see it, but it's just like little ripples in your edge. So it's not like a nice, beautiful, sharp. And also in the surface of your bevel, sorry, if you're jumping in, maybe some of this doesn't make sense. It's okay. So let's imagine that this is the knife blade, and this is the bevel at the bottom, like we were demonstrating, the part that you're sharpening. This bevel is cut with this rough stone, and so it's got a lot of roughness in the surface, which means also that the edge is kind of jagged. Even if you get the burr off, the edge is going to be a little bit ripply. So it's not that you can't use that edge, and in some cases, say you're cutting something that needs to be kind of, even like a tomato, where you want to kind of, it's like micro serrations, basically. You could use that, but I feel like, in general, the most useful edge is to go another step finer. Before we go finer, we're just going to use the same coarseness, and then just alternate sides and just lighten, just not push as hard, just go lighter. And so what that's doing is bending the burr back and forth, and it's not making those grooves quite as deep. It's basically like smoothing it slightly before we switch to the smoother stone.
Is your goal to then not be able to feel that burr?
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, now I can't feel it either way. So it's probably kind of straightened itself out. I don't have a lot of indicators at this point about the burr. I just kind of try to use just lighter and lighter pressures, and then when we switch to the smoother one, I go back and feel the burr again, so that we've for sure hit the edge again. So at this point, it's just kind of more going without guide rails, as far as how the burr feels, I would say. And at this point, you could already, you can slice things. It works fine. So you might want to stop. But if the burr is left, again, it will break off slowly, and it will the edge won't last as long, because it's kind of, the burr is there, and when it breaks off, it's not a perfectly sharp point anymore. It's like a little bit chewed up. So the burr is still there to some degree. We'll go to the smoother one, and we'll repeat how we started the rough one. And that is just using more direct pressure and going until we feel the burr. All these steps are things that I've found work for me, and I'm not saying if you leave out some of the steps or you do it, a little bit different, you can get sharp edges in a lot of ways. So all I'm saying is this isn't like the only way to do it, but now I can feel that there's a slight burr there again. And so I switch over, use harder pressure. Until I figure I've got my burr on the other side. So as you can see, when you're sharpening on this side, the burr comes on the top. It's just yeah, so now I can feel there's a burr there the whole way along. So now what I can do is just use the light pressure again and just switch back and forth. And again, it's just kind of loosening what's there. If you just go straight to the next stage without doing this, the burr is it's thicker and it's harder to get it off. And in the end, you do want to remove the burr. I've heard various discussions about people like, the burr is very sharp, you can use that, but it is actually really sharp, but it doesn't last, so there's not much point keeping it.
And then you're just sharpening you're in the same direction as what you were with the ref. You're not like sharpening a different cross hatch on like the groove.
I don't worry about that. I know there is a theory, or not theory, but there is some stuff around that might like take your sharpening to the next level, but I kind of just don't worry about it. And it gets really sharp. So, but it is a point that sharpening is a bunny trail. Like you can go down that bunny trail a long ways. But I think for our purposes here, we're looking to cut tomatoes and, I don't know, peppers or what do we cut in a cafe? Like what?
That's right.
Chicken? Okay. Vegetables?
Apples.
Apples?
Pineapples.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I should have asked that at the beginning. So meat as well as veg. Bread? Do you have to cut bread? Not so much. You buy it sliced maybe and whatever. Okay.
Some cafes do probably for bread.
Okay. We'll talk about that then a little bit with serrated knives. So I'm just lightening, and I think that's going to be fine. So what I have for the last stage, and you could probably skip it, but because this will cut, and whatever burr is left on there, and for bread as well, it'll be fine cutting bread. Whatever burr is on there, it'll probably wear off, and it'll still be pretty sharp. But this is a piece of wood with leather glued to it, and on the leather, actually this side has just plain leather. You can just use plain leather, but it doesn't have a lot of grit in it. So like in the old days, the barbers used to have a razor, and but it takes a lot of to get the thing sharp, and if it's any way needing to take off metal, it doesn't take off much. So there's a lot of different grit type dealios you can put on leather to make it take off, like to buff the edge. This is a piece that somebody gave me about 25 years ago, and it's still a piece. And actually, I broke it in half and gave it to people, and I still have a piece. So like, you literally don't need a lot of grit. Come on in. But that you just rub on your leather. It's very easy to make these. We made this with a group of school boys, and this was one of them. You just rub it on the thing, and then of course when you want to use the same angle that you used on the stone, but this time you're going backwards. You don't want to go forward because the leather is soft and it's gonna mess it up, and it'll mess up your knife as well. So use the same angle, but just draw it towards yourself. Usually I do like, I don't know, a bunch this way and then a bunch that way. And again, when you're coming, you want to lift to get the bevel in contact with the end there. And then maybe do something like this. And now the edge should be quite sharp. There's a lot of different ways to test how sharp your edge is. The best is, see if it shaves, which it does. Not perfectly, because you can tell if it pulls, then it's not that sharp, but it's pretty sharp. Just even your thumb, obviously you don't want to go along the ways because it'll slice but if you just draw your thumb along the edge, you can feel it like gripping, and you can tell, oh yeah, that's sharp, or nah, it's not quite sharp. Paper is often, I was going to bring a Uline catalog, which is good because it has like thin papers and stuff. This is a receipt, and I'll embarrass myself, it doesn't slice, but actually it does, yeah. Just normal paper will slice too. And as we saw, it actually cuts through tomato, but if a knife is dull, getting through the skin on a tomato is a little bit tricky. So this seems fine. There's also where they put a grape down and then just like push it through. But a lot of that has to do, there's more to a sharp edge, or more to a knife than just a sharp edge. So as far as it being easy to cut through things, and a tomato on the flat is one of those. So like the less thickness that you have behind the edge, this is a big criteria for a good kitchen knife. I don't know, we don't have time to go into that so much, but the thickness that's right at the back of your bevel, right here, that determines a lot of how easy you're going to be able to go through more like harder things, maybe like potatoes or whatever, but even bread and apples. Probably apples would be harder to slice if it was thick. So that's an additional part. Are we about out of time?
We got about
5 minutes, okay. Is there any questions? I think let's go to questions, and then maybe we can talk about serrated knives too a little bit if you want.
A question that I have in my mind is how to care for sharp knives.
Yes,
So
good.
in the context of cafes, they're being used and then they're being thrown into the dirty dish tub.
Yes.
being taken back to the dish room, ran through the dishwasher, and they're constantly
Whacking
being
off
dumped
stuff,
into
yeah. Yeah.
plastic, metal,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
It's not necessary to put them in the dishwasher. You never need to put a knife in the dishwasher. That's my own opinion. I don't know. Maybe you have a different. But you can literally just take your knife with a wet cloth and it's clean. I mean, I don't know, unless like meat, maybe you would have to.
Well,
Okay.
In the environment that we're working in, there's surf-safe standards.
So you have to.
After even slicing veggies, it needs to be like.
See,
washed and
I'm not thinking about
sanitized.
that. Yeah.
But
How do you heat? It probably has to be heated to a certain temperature or
not
something.
necessarily. Just more like washed with soapy water, and rinsed and sanitized.
Could you do it by hand, or is that not?
Yeah,
qualified?
it could be done by. It wouldn't have to go through a dishwasher.
Okay.
It would just mean more
Labor.
It's our process for all of our dirty
Yeah,
dishes.
yeah,
It would mean
yeah.
kind of like a reroute for the knife.
Yeah. To me, it's a bit of a liability to put it in with other stuff because you touch a sharp edge, you're going to get cut. So I would think maybe the solution would be to find a different process for knives than for the rest of your.
So then a question I have is like, what are some main things that would quickly dull a knife?
Yeah.
Like if they're clinking against what? It
Yeah.
dulls them. Like what?
So other metal things for sure. Plastic, not so much. And of course, wood. You're cutting on wood. Maybe I don't know, unless you're not allowed wood in.
Well, it would be plastic.
It would be plastic, so that's fine. Yeah, plastic is totally fine. Also, storing them, you probably have a place where they get stored in a certain, but a lot of times in a kitchen, you just put it in a drawer and then that's very bad for it as well.
We have a magnet strip that we put our
Perfect.
knives on.
Yeah, that's excellent.
side by
Yeah,
side.
as long as they're not hitting each other, or the magnet strips sometimes are metal as well. So that has to. You can just like cover it with a thin piece of plastic or something, and then it still sticks to it. But it's up to you.
If you put a little bit of plastic on it, it might stick even a little bit better because the metal's pretty smooth.
Oh, and it just slides. Yes, something that's anti-slip. Probably that would work. Yeah. Yeah, good question. I don't know if that helps, but anything else?
Thinking about like your rough grit, sharpen, and
Oh yeah.
leaving the edge slightly toothy. How do you remove the burr if you want to experiment with
Yes.
just a little more toothy edge?
What normally they advise is just spend a little bit more time going back and forth really lightly, like even barely the weight of the knife, just gently, and then you still go to the honing then to finish the last of the burr, but you don't switch to the smooth side.
So the smoother grit is specifically to remove the serrations from your bevel, or
Yes, the deeper grooves from the previous, yeah, slowly lightens them.
And a smooth edge like that is just really, it's definitely going to be helping with like push cutting.
Yes,
But then something like if you're using a slicing motion on
Yeah.
edges, I have a feeling that
the
a little bit of
grit,
edge
yeah,
might be helpful.
yeah. It's probably right. I haven't spent enough time to compare. Like I don't actually cut a lot of veggies. I should, but yeah, and maybe even like for bread. One of your questions was around serrated knives, and usually what I don't know. Do you use serrated knives even for like vegetables and stuff?
We do.
You do.
Yeah.
Especially like lettuce.
Yeah, that's true. In general, I feel like a sharp normal knife cuts better if it's sharp than a serrated knife. I mean, you can get really, really sharp serrated knives, and that'll work good. But usually they dull out, and you can sharpen them. So you can see usually this is a Cutco, and a lot of them are like that. The one side doesn't really have a bevel. It's just basically flat, except that I tried to sharpen it. Then the other side has a bevel. Probably it's hard to show everybody. But so it's one-sided instead of two-sided like a normal. So what you can do, if it's see if I can illustrate that. I can't write on there with that. Say, okay, this is the side of the knife, and then you have your little toothy deals there. Then this is your bevel, like that. I'm not sure if I drew that right. But basically, the one side of the knife is just flat. Maybe this is flat like this. Did I draw that right? Yeah, but it's just more like this. So instead of having a two-sided, it's like this. So you can, just lay this flat on the stone. Actually, it has more of a compound one on this one. Just lay it flat on the stone and take off some steel. Usually there's a burr or something because you've been sawing through stuff you shouldn't have. And then you get a burr on the other side. The trick is then to get the burr off on the other side because you have all those teeth. You can use a thing like this, which has, try not to stab you, like a thin edge. This came from Greece, but I think you can buy them on Amazon. And then it will slowly remove the burr, and then you can switch to this. In general, it is difficult to sharpen serrated blades. You can sort of see the lines there, but it will still. What happens is you get the ends of the thing sharp, but it's hard to get the inside part sharp. I would say if you start a policy of keeping your knife sharp, you get away with basically a good knife. That would be my suggestion, even for bread. If it's sharp, maybe even like a toothy edge, more like what you're suggesting. Even crusty bread works amazing. And then you get used to a sharp knife. You want to protect the edge, and then everybody's happy. Any other questions, or are we out of time?
We are out of time.
Okay,
so
sorry about that. Yeah.
we keep things moving here.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, thank you so much, Nat. Really appreciate it. Yes, lots of really great things. Definitely would be able to talk to you for a very long time about knife sharpening.
I was going to mention in a kitchen, so this is a rod that's the smoothness of that thin one. You can hold it upright like that, or you can do it different ways. This is not the grooved one like you see in the knife sets. Please don't use those. I'm sorry if I might have offended somebody. Don't use those. This is a diamond, and you can use it basically like you did, but you can just go like this. And it's a kind of an intermediate sharpening piece that maybe even avoids that once you get used to it. So I just wanted to throw that out because it could be a useful thing in a kitchen.
Something where you can quickly touch it
Yes.
in the middle of a workflow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate it. This is the kind of thing that I would definitely want to incorporate at Sowers. Hopefully at some point I have enough capacity that I can take something like this on and see if we can actually figure out a way of working it into the processes.
And I was going to mention that my email is on the front of the thing. If you have, say, even to buy stones or whatever like that, you can email me and we can go through if you want advice. I mean, I have whatever.
You can get set up with a really good knife sharpening setup for about 60, 70.
Yeah, this stone here, which is basically that, $45 on Amazon, and it's a very good quality.
Yes, you really can't get much better than it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to get into. It's something that's a great life skill. So if you are thinking about bringing it into a cafe, start it as a hobby. Can recommend. Then figure out how to bring it into your cafe. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you again, Nat. Really appreciate it.